So, greetings everybody. My name is Gray Johnson. I'm a photographer based in Washington, D.C. So I specialize in boudoir, fine art, nude, and erotic photography. I specialize in those because I believe in being open, being free with yourself, being open to being free with your body, and freely expressing. And I think all those three energies, I don't know, I feel like when we're in those states, in those settings, we're kind of in our truest forms and in our truest selves. So like one of the things that I do with my photography, my philosophy, is that basically it's based on, again, just being open, being yourself, being free. I don't really shoot for like the perfect image. I don't have people pose in certain ways. Usually I just kind of have like an outline, general outline, what makes people comfortable, talking to them, and then just trying to figure out how to get that transition from talking to them and then bringing that to the camera. So that's the premise and why I shoot. Way long ago, I started out in drawing and painting in Minneapolis. Prior to that, I was working pretty much regular 9-to-5 gig. Even prior to that, I loved to draw, I loved to paint. I did a lot of that back in high school. Then college hit, then I got a job. And so like basically I just kind of got away from all of that, you know, but like in my heart, I always wanted to create, I always wanted to paint, I always wanted to draw. So I ended up going back to school. I took a few courses at Minneapolis College of Art and Design. So I did some drawing there, I did some painting there. We even like played around a little bit with some sculpture and stuff like that in our classes. So I enjoyed that, really had a good time with that. But like my head, like I process stuff like really fast. And I would get frustrated when I'm drawing because I could see something in my head, but I couldn't get it down on paper the way that I wanted to get it down. So that upset me. And so one day I was talking to a group of photographers who were in the class, and they were like, well, why don't you just take up photography? It's like that way you can have control of your lighting, you have control of the subject, the environment, and you can get everything in your head down in a faster way that's going to look a little bit more representative of what it is that you want to have. So I did. I kicked the I kicked the can down the street for a few years. I eventually went out, I bought a camera, kicked the can down the street a few years, eventually said I got this to get out the pot. So I went out, I took a workshop, similar to this right now. I went out, took a workshop, and I was a fine art nude workshop. So it was the very first time that I had picked up a camera that I just wasn't goofing off with it, right? I actually had intent and a desire to create something. So that was the first time that I did that. So the workshop went really well. Shot the model, worked with the guy who was teaching the workshop, who eventually became my mentor. I reached out to him a couple more times after that to try to have him coach me. He basically just teach me everything that you know. He did that for me, and so that was kind of like my education, my initial education into photography and fine art and photography and boudoir style photography. So from there, I kept shooting. I had my first solo shoot in December 2016. I was here in DC and have just been shooting since that. I have a very artistic background, so when I shoot, what I look for in my shots a lot of times is lighting, shape, form, and because I like to connect with people, I look for emotion, right? So I always try to get people feeling good, feeling comfortable, smiling. I believe when you see that, it comes across through the camera, and people are able to kind of portray that, and that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable when I'm working with them. We used to have like slides. A little bit more kind of like my philosophy. So I'm a minimalist, right? So basically, I believe, I don't use like a whole lot of lighting. As you can see, this, and then this would be a very typical setup for me. Like I use the sun a lot. I use like maybe one light here to fill in some shadows, or like maybe if the face isn't lit very well or anything like that. And that's typically it. That's typically what I go with because I'm focused on trying to capture other things in the photograph and stuff like that. So I'm a minimalist also as well, like when it comes to props and things like that. Usually I don't use like a whole lot of props in the photos because of the fact that I think sometimes props can take away from what it is that you want to really capture. If you want to tell your story, maybe one or two props, but I usually don't use like a whole lot of props and stuff like that in it. And if we do use it, then I want to just make sure that it tells a really good story so that whoever sees the photo knows exactly what's going on in the picture without any questions or anything. So one of the key things, again, that kind of comes back to what I was talking about, is why I shoot, is getting to know your subject. So when I shoot, you meet people for the first time. You have no idea what history they're bringing with them, or what history they're bringing to them. But like for me, I always want to get to know my subject. I always want to get to know who I'm shooting, what their intentions are, what are their motivations behind the shoot, what it is that they want to capture, how they want to feel throughout the shoot. So I bring that to the table. Logistically, if you come to my apartment or if you come to my studio, I treat you like a friend. Like I don't have any enemies that I consider. Like everybody that I meet is a friend, right? Like that's just point blank. If I meet you for the first time, hey, how you doing? Come in, give me some love. You know, that's me. That's how I am. So I treat everybody that way when they come in. Just immediately letting them know. As soon as you walk in the door, you're going to be treated with respect. You're going to be treated like that as a friend of mine. So I'm going to treat you. The bathroom's here. The fridge is there. We're shooting here, giving everybody the lay of the land, just letting people know what's going on. What's the intent of the shoot? So I'll say, hey, I do 3 styles pretty much: the fine art nude, the boudoir, and then like the erotic. And it's funny, everybody's different. I've had shoots where it'll be a classic fine art nude shoot. People will show up, having a really good time. I'll walk away for a break, and I come back and somebody brings handcuffs out. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I thought we were just doing like a normal shoot, or like a fine art nude shoot or whatever. They're like, no, it's like, I'm really having such a great time. This is something that I wanted to do. I've been thinking about doing it, but I just never felt comfortable enough to actually do this with somebody. So I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen, right? So once that started happening more than once, I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to say fine art nude, boudoir, and erotic and kink photography, because that way it's out there. Everybody knows that if this is something you're interested in doing, this is what you want. This is what we can do. Everybody has a different comfort level, right? There's some people who quite aren't as comfortable being nude, aren't quite as comfortable being naked. Typically, when that's the issue, I suggest doing like more of a boudoir type of thing, right? Because that way you're still a little exposed, you know, but you're not all out there for the world to see, so to speak, you know. Some people are like, as soon as they walk in the door, the clothes come off, and like you can't get them to put clothes back on again. But then I'm like, okay, it's really fun because a lot of times it's just like I'm in the passenger seat and I'm just trying to keep up with like the energy of the room at times. And a lot of times the kink stuff, that's kind of how it turns out. People have these ideas and stuff in their head, ways that they want to shoot, ways that they kind of see themselves. And then like I play passenger, I'm just playing catch up. I'm like, okay, go for it. I'm just going to make sure the light is good. I'm going to make sure I can get the expression that I want to get from you. And I want to make sure that you're having a good time, you know. So that's kind of how I approach all 3 of those with my subjects. Yeah, just like that. Extend your arm here a little bit more, and that arm, I want you to just kind of, yeah, perfect. So now, as far as posing goes, this is my base. And so here is where she's going to start out at. And my job is, okay, I'm looking, she's comfortable. Is there any tension or anything at all? I don't see a lot of tension in her arms and her legs or her shoulders. I'm scanning, I'm looking, okay, are the legs bent? They're away from the body. I'm scanning for that. The only other thing that I may consider is I'll say, hey, Trina, can you sit up a little straight? Perfect. Same thing, sit up nice and straight, and I want you to really extend your neck for me. Beautiful. And that'll be my base shot, right there. How's the lighting in this corner? I'm looking, I think the lighting is really good. I see some highlights. See some highlights on the head right here, highlights on the chest right here, highlights on the breast.
Gorgeous.
It's a little more diffuse in this area because she's wearing the garment. Then you see some highlights and stuff on the arm. So I'm happy with what I see as far as lighting is concerned. Can you guys see?
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, the lighting's good. The second thing I'm considering is framing. How's she going to be framed up? I like where she is right there. The light's really good. But when I say framing, I want her to come out this way a little bit more because this acts like a natural frame and it separates her from the background. So now I can see the highlights and I can actually see her framed up. So when I take this, you can see, but you can see how she's framed in the photograph.
Yeah.
And now if you go back, yeah, just like you are right there, which is still a good photo, but actually coming this way a little bit more. Perfect. Yeah. So it's still a gorgeous photo. The lighting looks amazing, but you can see her head is on the where the wood is right there. And so, not a bad photo, not a bad shot. You can use it, but to kind of separate the subject, you want to make sure that she's out a little bit more. And like when I take that photo, I want that to be a direct representation of what it is that I'm trying to capture. So what I'm trying to capture you. So that's it. That in a sense is pretty much my process, my style. That's how I do it. And I've been doing it now for about, since 26, so almost 4 years. And it gets easier every time to it. Starting out, it was quite nerve-wracking. I remember my very first shoot, I was nervous and sweating. The model was a little impatient with me. And I was like trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with her, right? And so I had like 2 hours of shit, like 2 hours of time booked in the studio. And like after about 10 minutes, I'm fresh out of ideas. I'm like, shit, what the hell do I do? So she basically saved my butt. I appreciated that. I thanked her for that. And kind of since that moment, I was like, okay. I have two decisions. Like, am I cut out for this? Or am I going to get my shit together and try to form up with the process? So like, after that, I did a little bit of soul searching. I said, no, I can do this. I can manage this. I just got to get a few things in order. And I came up with a plan. And so like from this day forward, I always have a plan. I always have a shot plan. Does everything go to the plan in the shoot? No. But I have that guideline there. I have that skeleton there. And it's always something that I use to kind of fall back on. So that's pretty much it. All I got. Are there any questions? Any other questions or anything that anybody has for me?
But what would be your advice for someone starting out with this?
Shooting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Advice. I don't know. I would say the hit homes determine your intent because it's going to show on the camera. So determine what it is that you want to shoot. So if you want to shoot like tits and ass, that's fine. That's great. But make sure that you can express that. Make sure that whoever you're working with knows that, and don't have them show up on set and they're expecting, so I really want to shoot like find our nude, ha ha ha. And then they get the photos back and like, why are all my shots butt shots? They're all booty shots. What the hell is this all about? This is not something that I wanted, right? So you have to be open and be honest with yourself. Find out what it is that what empowers you, what motivates you to shoot, and be honest with that. If you're honest with people about that, they respond, they respect it, and they respond to it. You just have to be honest. You just have to let them know where you're coming from. Get a camera. I mean, I don't think it really matters what kind of camera you get initially. Like you can get like a point and shoot, click camera, whatever. The whole purpose of having that camera, and I think if you start out on that a lot of times, you can create what it is that you're trying to create a little bit better because you have to work that much harder. It's like riding with the training wheels at first. So get you a nice little camera. It could be like a little compact zoom lens camera or whatever, and practice. Just practice on those. YouTube University. I don't know how many hours I spent on YouTube trying to watch stuff, watching shows, listening to other people. 90% of YouTube is shit, and like you won't find like a whole lot of useful information on it. But when you will find those gems, and you'll be able to knock it out of the park, just filter through it, watch a lot of stuff, and you'll find things that are going to be meaningful to you and things that are going to be that will speak to you. I would suggest that as well. And then if you want to shoot this type of photography, reach out. Get your presence out there. Talk to friends initially. If you can't do it with friends, a lot of people have to get models. They'll hire models to come in and model for them. But I always let them know, kind of like take a look at their work, look at their portfolio, see what type of work that they do. Be open, be upfront, let them know, hey, this is the style that I like to do. You're in Chicago, so like I don't think it would be any problem whatsoever. Chicago is full of people, full of artistic people, so I don't think it would be like any problem at all. Reach out to models, reach out to friends, let them know kind of what you're interested in doing. Don't surprise them and say, it's going to be the boudoir, and all of a sudden you're bringing out the handcuffs, Just know initially what you want to do. And I think you'll be fine. Mentorship is good too. It's always really good to have people that have kind of like anything, like you stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Don't waste a lot of time trying to reinvent the wheel. There's tons of reference material out there. There's tons of resources out there. A lot of that hard work has already been done. Take that, learn from that, and just build on top of that. If you can, find a mentor that's close by. Even if they don't show up at the studio with you, you can bounce ideas off of them. There's a lot of times where it's good to have a mentor. Like for me, since again, I'm the one-man show, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know from the business aspect of it, right? There's a lot of things that I'm figuring out as I go along, like certain things that we were even talking today. There's certain things that are out there like I just don't know, and like you don't know it unless you start bouncing it out there, Be open, be upfront, be honest, be friendly, bring people into your circle. Not everybody's gonna want to come in. Give them an option that, hey, if you want to be here, I'd love to have you here, but if not, that's fine as well, but that's completely and totally okay. So.
Something came to mind when you were talking about them just starting out in the advice.
Yeah.
I work with photographers that they did not just start out, right? But the context of what I was creating, you could see in their work how like it might be a scene that they're shooting, and then as you can tell where the arousal is, and then they start zooming in on those parts, like you say, with the butts and the breasts, except maybe cutting off heads and so how how do you even choose someone that won't do that? And how do you not be that person?
So as I say, I was that guy. That photographer. What are you doing, right? It's a new experience. You're like, oh my God, is this really happening? And so like the camera just goes in for like with your eyes focused on. And then like you get the photos back, you're like, oh shit, okay. I've got to do better next time.
I was like, I see a silhouette like this.
So
you're not lit.
So yeah, how do you get out of it? You have to kind of focus on your subject. You have to focus on the intent of your subject. Like I did a masturbation shoot with a model. She was laying on the floor. The room was lit. She was very very comfortable. Again, had the dildo, just like kind of going to town, and then eventually it's like, okay, snap. I was like, stop. I was like, back up. So it's literally, you just stop yourself, you back up, and you reapproach it, and you say, okay, take in the whole frame, take in the whole picture, right? And so I stepped back. Literally, yeah. And I just snapped her in the environment. I just got to snap up in the moment in the environment, right? So that's seriously, like you have to take a step back. And so like that's what I did. Like, okay, capture her in this moment, not the actual action itself. Sometimes, I go in, I would get like some close-ups and things like that because that's part of it. That's part of the package. At the end of the day, like I don't want that to be the entire time we were shooting, and that's happening. So, and it's difficult sometimes because like, are you shooting on the floor? Are you shooting on a bed? Are you shooting on a couch? All that is going to affect the lighting. All that's going to affect like the angle you're trying to capture and stuff like that. So like doing that is definitely challenging unless you're doing like a more like a portrait style. If you're doing portrait stuff, that's fairly straightforward. But like That's why I'm always resourcing. That's why I'm always looking at other erotic photographers and seeing how they shoot. I'm like, okay, so they were down here, the leg was out there, and the camera's slightly right here. Let's see if I can mimic that the next time I get a chance to do that. And so like that's kind of how I approach it. That's why it's always good to have reference material, because then you don't end up with like, oh damn, all I got is screenshots. Like really, that's all that happened. So yeah, that's how I typically approach it. And my perspective when I started shooting, I didn't really have a hard time shooting the sexual stuff. It was figuring out what I wanted to say while I was shooting it, because I always wanted to make things feel like fine art. So there was a level of detachment between myself and like the camera, like what I was doing and the action of what was happening. So I think removing yourself sometimes is an easy way to like find a way to step back and then figure out what's happening. Another thing is when you're really into the moment and you're in like the technique, like thinking about like the intention of what you want with the technique, like feeling is a big part of like what we are doing as artists. So regardless of what we're shooting, it's coming at the thing of how can I most artistically and beautifully show this moment. And it is finding lighting. It is choosing to have that connection with the person so you can talk. You know, because it'll be a constant conversation. It's just like when you do, yoga. It's just like when you do a lot of other things in your life. If you're having that constant talk with it, whether it's you or partner work, and this situation is partner work, so I'm gonna say, "Ooh, I like that lighting." And you saw as he liked stuff, he would, "Oh, I like that." And we did our best to keep Trina in a space where he likes the light and gets in the moment, right? So having those things help like really bring that connection in. Finding a reference, like I tell you, if you look through any photographer that you like, you find one you like. Don't just like that one. Find a bunch of others, stalk them, right? Figure out what you like about them. That'll figure out what you want to say as you start to make more stuff. And find a friend who you can say, yo, just give me an afternoon to just hang out. We're gonna do some weird shit, baby. We're just trying to figure it out.
Just work with me.
That way it helps you, they may be more open. It may be a whole experience where, you have that connection, and it could be something where you're finding your voice, because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one shoot. So you didn't get a split in the first try. You didn't get the high note on the first try. You might have got a high screech, and it might have been real ugly. But it's that process. So being happy and appreciating where you are.
How do you change up the way that a model, like the having the same model, and this can go to either one of you, having the same model, but then changing still the pictures and how the pictures look? Like I know for you, I look completely different.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, really. No, and
You
again,
don't
like
think so?
from my perspective, that's you. You know what I mean? Like when no, I don't think so.
A whole
I
bunch
don't
of
think-
different things. From the one
Yes.
in DC to the one in the beach,
Yes.
and the different things that I had on, I feel like you even caught, like the ones at the end of the day on the beach in the water, just it was just a different, I feel like you caught a different, caught me differently than when we were in DC.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Might just be the place.
consideration. We again building that rapport, right? So DC was our first shoot, and we had kind of talked and kind of gone back and forth since that time, and then like it came up, and like so it was a lot of good energy, a lot of positive energy when we shot at the beach, and I think like you with the shirt, like when you were in the water, a lot of that was like your idea, like you wanted to get like you coming out of the water. So already from my head, my standpoint, I know we're going to do a good job because I know this is something that you want to do. I know this is something you're going to be passionate about doing. And so like whatever feedback or whatever direction that I can give to you, you're going to nail it. Because like what I'm seeing, I'm a minimalist. So like I'm only going to give you a few key things that I need from you or that I want you to do. You know, make sure the light is good, make sure your arms are apart, show me shapes. And then my job next is to try to get emotion from you. And so like I was able to, or I don't know, I'm assuming I was able to get the emotion out.
That
But, like-
one in the water, you shot for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you took the picture. You were like, I'm done. I was like,
Sometimes
we're done?
Right?
I was like, we're done.
sometimes that works though.
They're
Like,
my most favorite picture.
Are they? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's just like, I think your intent with that, like coming into the water, is just kind of knowing that, you know, that's what you wanted. You know, that was the thing. That was the thing that hit it for you. That was the thing that did it for you. And so capturing that ended up giving you kind
But
of
do you see it?
what's that?
The picture, do you see it?
I have a general idea. I have a general idea in my head of what I'm looking for. Does it always translate? Sometimes, does it not? No. But then the dance with that is like you don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole, because if you spend all your time and energy trying to capture exactly what's in your head, you just keep chasing it forever. So a lot of it too is just like you jump in there, you play around with it, you figure it out, you bring it back, you look on the camera, you're like, oh, damn, I wasn't expecting that at all. Sometimes when you come in with that expectation, there's going to be this, that, and the other, you look at it like, wow, that was just flat. It just wasn't what I was expecting at all. And it's like that with life, right? Like, life is like that. There's expectations, there's highs, there's lows. Yeah. And it's a very kind of, I don't know, zen or in the moment type of thing. It's freeing. You have to allow the process. You can come in with all the study, all the intent, and all the technique in the world. And then when you get there, life's like, that's great, but do this, right?
I put it in my pocket. It's not the first thing I'm gonna do. It's one of the last things I'm gonna do. One, because I feel like if you start off with that, you still got all that nervous energy. So, and it's like you have this expectation. Okay, this is a shot. I did it. Now I'm done. Right? If you gotta work for it to get there, you get warmed up, you do some other stuff, and then when you naturally find it, you might find it in a place you didn't expect it. It's better. Another thing is if I'm working with someone that's a little bit more timid or has a harder time shooting, I find things that they don't have to actually pay attention to me for. So as an example, you're a yogi and it's your first shoot or your first time doing a nude. Go find a place somewhere that makes you happy and do your thing for a little bit. And I'll find a shot around you. And before, like you said, it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes he shot. You didn't even know he was shooting. Oh, I stole a couple that looked really good. And I said, right? And you say, damn, that's me? Oh, I got a thing you can do. Hold on. And now you're in a space where you want to try something. You're thinking of things that you wouldn't have given yourself before. So it's a little bit of that play, that coaching mind tricks that you kind of play with to figure out what kind of talent do I have today? What kind of players on my team today? Who's my star? And how do I get them to perform the best?
Cool. Do you all shoot men at all?
Yes. I haven't shot a whole lot of them. Not that I'm opposed, but it's just not something I've shot.
There's nothing leading them on why?
I really wish men would do more professional nude. They just take the pictures, and I think they do that because they feel like they won't look as beautiful as women, not realizing that the photographer is part of that beauty in those professional pictures. And I had a chance to see someone on Instagram, and he did a professional shoot nude, and it made all the difference in his skin, in his body, in his poses, and everything. And I wish that it would be put out there more. I don't know, by photographers, by men, whoever, but to see men in that beautiful way, we're missing it.
Well, that was a part of the conversation we had yesterday. And part of that comes down to how we look at nudity as a society. Some men have a harder time accepting their bodies
Men.
in that space sometimes, and especially not knowing what they're supposed to do, it makes it a little bit more off-putting. So, I mean, that's just something we have to change in the narrative of the situation itself.
It's definitely space and opportunity to create what hasn't been done. With boudoir, it's been done. Like you said, you can pull out a book, you can do your research. This would probably be something that's more innovative.
Well, it's been done 1,000 times over. You think about all the sculptures, you think about all the monuments, all the things in history. We've seen them male nude in 1,000 places. We just don't perfect body. We see a lot of bodies. I mean, you think about all guys weren't David, and these super rich guys. There are a lot of ones that are older. There are a lot of ones that are younger. You see cherubs and babies and all kinds of stuff. So we just have to be more comfortable in our current society, in this American space of how we feel about our bodies and how we communicate with them.